Okay, in this video we're going to talk about turning a short row heel. This is the toddler size of the tiny foot sweaters, and it's just a very basic cuff down. Started right here, went down, turned a little short row heel, and made a basic little toe. But wrapping and turning is not something everyone has done, so let's get into how that works. This is a practice sock. It's got my heel stitches on one needle and my instep stitches over 2 needles, and we're going to work the heel across the stitches on this single needle. I cast on less stitches than I normally would for this sock to make this demonstration go fairly quickly. So for the first row, I'm going to knit to the last stitch. Now I'm at the last stitch. I'm going to slip it purlwise, wrap my working yarn around that stitch, and turn my work. So now this stitch, my one stitch, last stitch, is locked to my short row with my wrap and turn. Going back, we're going to do the same. We're going to purl across to the last stitch. Oh, that needle's in the way. Whoops, 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 whoops. I've purled to my last stitch. And I'm going to slip it purlwise, wrap my yarn and turn it. And slip that stitch back, and you can see right here how I've locked my stitches together. You're just going to keep doing that. Each row will get a little shorter, making a triangle. So going back, I'm going to knit to one stitch before my wrapped stitch, slip it purlwise, bring my yarn through, wrap it around, slip it back, and turn, and untangle. Purl to one stitch before my wrap stitch, slip it, wrap it, slip it back, turn my work. We're going to keep going, doing that until I have the correct number of stitches between my needles. In this case, I'm going for 4 stitches between my needles. So I wrap, turn, dropping stitches. Don't fear dropped stitches, they can sense your fear. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll fix that one later. So I've wrapped and turned, picked up my stitches, going back purlwise, purl, 2, 3, 4. So now I have 4 stitches in between my wrap and turn. And it's a little hard to see, but I'm making this triangle. And I can show you actually on a flat sock. Hang on one second. So if we took a sock and flattened it out, knit it flat, it would look like this. And this is the part right here. This little triangle is the part we've just done. By making those rows shorter, we're making the heel of the sock. And if we put it together, see, we can't flatten this one out, but there's that triangle right there on each side. There's a triangle. There's a triangle. So we've started that here, and now we're ready to make the other side of the triangle. Unlike the flat sock, we want to keep locking these stitches together so that the heel turns. So we're going to knit across to our first wrap stitch, knit through the wrap like so, knit through the wrap, knit through the wrap, and we're going to wrap again. So now we have 2 wraps on that stitch. So the first time you knit across to turn the heel, you'll knit through 1 wrap on each side. And after that, you'll knit through 2 wraps on each side. Boy, that needle. So here's my first wrap stitch. When I'm knitting through wraps, I like to purl on the purl side through the back loops, because it makes a cleaner join on the right side of the sock. It's a little more complicated, but I like how it looks. So I'm always going to purl those through the back loop. So I've wrapped and turned, and if you look closely, you can see I now have 2 wraps on this stitch. Knitting back, knit, 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 knit. So here's where I knit my 2 wraps originally. Or my first wrap. Here's 1 stitch, picking up 2 wraps, so it looks like I've got 3 stitches on my needle right there. And I'm going to knit through all 3 of those, and what this does is it just prevents those stitches from gapping. Wrap and turn as the short rows get used. Nope, I did wrap and turn, and I've made a mess. There we go. Gonna purl across. A short row heel is wonderful if you want to do a contrast heel, because it just jumps right into your sock without needing to do anything extra. You just switch yarn colors and wham, you've got a different color. So we're going to do the purl here, and I want to go, this is where it's tricky. I'm going to turn my work slightly through the back 2 loops of my wraps and then purl into that stitch and lift those 2 wraps over. However you do that, whatever works for your hands is going to be the correct thing, as long as you're getting those purls locked in, those wrapped stitches locked together. But you see, here's where I wrapped them all together, and it looks like the other side. Knitting across. We've got 1 wrap stitch here and 1 wrap stitch here. So what we're going to do here, when we've got 1 wrap stitch on each side, is just continue knitting. So here are my 2 wraps. I'm going to knit through all of them. And then I'm going to knit across the instep of the sock, which is going to involve some fixing. Should have 5 stitches here. I'm missing 1. 4. It's right here. Pick that up real quick. I want to show you the last little bit. I'm going to need this stitch here to do that. There we go. Get that out of the way. Now we've come around, we've got 1 more wrap from that purl wrap there. And we're just going to knit into it as normal. And now we're on the foot of the sock. We can just knit around the number of rounds or the number of inches until we're ready to do the toe. And there's our heel. We've made a nice, neat little pocket for somebody's little foot.